Most people think that when an avoidant pulls away, it means they're done, that the distance is a verdict. A quiet goodbye dressed up as needing space. But that's not always true. What looks like the end isn't always the end. It's a very specific kind of emotional shutdown that most people misread because they're too busy personalizing the distance or preparing to walk away themselves. The truth is far more nuanced than rejection. And learning to read these signs might change everything you thought you knew about whether this connection is actually worth fighting for. Here's what no one tells you. Avoiding attachment isn't a personality flaw. It's a survival strategy. Research on attachment theory shows that avoiding individuals learned early on that expressing needs led to disappointment. So they built walls not to keep love out, but to keep pain out. So when they pull away, it doesn't always mean they don't care. Sometimes it means they care so much it terrifies them. And for the first few days after the distance starts, it can feel like indifference, like silence, like you don't matter. But silence is not indifference. It's just their nervous system doing what it learned to do. And underneath it, something else is happening entirely. The first big sign. They pull away, but they don't disappear. There's a difference between an avoidant who is done and an avoidant who is overwhelmed. When someone is truly finished, they go cold and clean. No breadcrumbs. No soft check-ins. No lingering presence on the edge of your life. But when an avoidant stills feelings they haven't processed, the withdrawal is inconsistent. They go quiet, but they still watch your stories. They create distance, but they leave the door slightly open. They say they need space, but somehow they're still around, just further away than you'd like. This inconsistency isn't manipulation. It's internal conflict made visible. They're not stringing you along intentionally. They're caught between two competing drives. The need for closeness and the fear of what closeness cost them. If they were truly gone, they'd be gone. The fact that they're still orbiting, even quietly, means a connection is still alive inside them. They just don't yet know what to do with it. The second big sign, they show up during your low moments. Avoidants are often accused of being emotionally unavailable, and in calm, stable moments that can feel true, they deflect, they minimize, they change the subject when things get vulnerable. But watch what happens when things get hard. When you're going through something real, a loss, a setback, a moment of genuine struggle, some avoidants show up in ways that surprise you. A text out of nowhere, a quiet act of care, a presence that doesn't announce itself but is unmistakably there. Research shows that avoidant individuals often find it easier to connect during moments of genuine crisis because the emotional stakes feel justified. Vulnerability in a crisis doesn't feel like weakness. It feels like necessity, and necessity temporarily bypasses their defenses. If your avoidance shows up when things get real, even quietly, even imperfectly, that's not a small thing. That's them reaching across the wall they built, not because it's easy, but because something in them couldn't stay behind it when you needed them. The third big sign, they remember things they were never supposed to care about. Avoidants are often written off as emotionally detached, and in the middle of conflict, that can feel accurate. They seem unmoved, unreachable, like the details of your life don't register. But then something small happens. They mention an offhand thing you said 3 months ago. They remember your coffee order. They bring up a story you told once. Casually, like they hadn't filed away carefully. They did. Avoidance process connection internally and privately. What they rarely do is perform it. They won't gush. They won't constantly reflect your feelings back to you. But the data is being collected quietly. Every conversation, every detail, every moment that mattered to you, when those details surface unexpectedly, it's a window into how much they were actually paying attention. And paying attention, for someone who was taught that attachment leads to pain, is an act of quiet courage. Those small moments of memory aren't accidents. They're evidence of investment, of a person who is more present than they ever let on. The fourth big sign, they get more uncomfortable the closer things get. Not because you're wrong for them, but because you're right. This is the one most people misread as a reason to leave. You start to get close. Things feel real, and then they flinch. They pick a fight. They find reasons to criticize. They create just enough turbulence to justify pulling back. And it feels like rejection, like sabotage, like proof that this isn't going to work. But here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. Their nervous system is sounding an alarm, not because danger is present, but because safety is, because real intimacy, the kind that requires staying open and being truly known, activates every old fear they were taught to carry. The discomfort that rises when things get good is the pattern. Discomfort, withdrawal, distance, return, discomfort again. That cycle isn't proof that they don't love you. It's proof that they haven't yet learned to let love stay. And those are fundamentally different things. An avoidant who flinches at closeness with you specifically, while still coming back, still engaging, still trying their limited way, is showing you something important. The fear isn't about you. It's older than you. And fear that old can be worked through, if they're willing. The deepest sign of all, they've never fully let you go, even when the relationship paused. Some connections don't end. They just go quiet for a while. And if you've been in that quiet, that strange in-between space where nothing is defined but everything still feels alive, you may already know the sign without being able to name it. An avoidant who isn't done with you doesn't fully release the connection. They don't delete the photos. They don't stop asking about you through mutual friends. They don't stop thinking about you. In the quiet hours they never admit to, they hold the thread, even when they've dropped everything else. That doesn't mean staying is always the right choice. It doesn't mean the relationship is automatically worth the cost of your own emotional well-being. But it does mean the connection is real. And real connections with avoidance aren't disposable to them. Even when they act like they are, here's what matters most. Especially if you're standing at this crossroads right now. Keeping trying with an avoidant isn't about tolerating endless pain. It's about knowing the difference between someone who is unavailable and someone who is afraid, between someone who doesn't care and someone who doesn't yet know how to show it safely. The signs are there. They've always been there. You just needed the language to read them. So you have two choices. Walk away and know that you made a clear-eyed decision based on what the connection actually showed you, or keep trying, not out of hope alone, but out of genuine evidence that what you have is worth the discomfort growing through. Both choices are valid, but only one can be made with clarity, and that clarity starts right now.